All right, welcome back to the Mammoth Plumber podcast. I've got with me, just like last time, Kyrilos. Kyrilos is the head of sales at Mammoth, the agency that I run, and he gets all the cool questions that everybody kind of wants answers to. So I was like, cool, let's just keep doing this. So Kyrilos, what do we got to talk about today?
Today I have lead generation on the list.
It's the Mammoth Plumber Podcast with Tyler Williams, the marketing man.
Okay, so what do you got? What do you got for lead generation on the list today?
Yeah, a few things and an existential question sometimes. But when it comes to lead gen, a lot of times people, when they go into marketing, they typically a lot of times they think that all marketing is just lead generation. They don't really factor in other factors to marketing. But also, big question is, what should I do when it comes to lead gen? I have Yelp, I have Thumbtack, I have Angie's, Home Advisor, and I can say more. I have LSA, I have PPC. So as a plumbing company today in 2025, what should be the best platform that should I go on for lead gen?
So lead generation, a little bit of history here. Lead generation didn't used to exist the way that exists today. So like you got to remember that for every lead that you pay for, you're paying a tax of sorts, right? You're paying for the lead. So whatever platform it is, Google being the most like commonly known, but any platform, like you are paying to get that lead. And where I run up against some issues is then all that money goes to that one person when you could have reached thousands of people. And really, you need to be doing kind of a balance of both. So if you're only doing lead generation, you got some problems. We just did a podcast recently on brand awareness. You should go listen to that, and that'll sort of track you why. But when it does come to lead generation, because I do think you should do both, and I mean, you got to make the phone ring early. And you have these platforms where somebody needs a plumber and they go to them as their source of help. That is always going to be one of the more expensive ways to get a customer because you're competing against every other plumber because everybody's hungry for phone calls just like you are. So supply and demand. Now, I used to, let's go into the category of not Google lead gen sources. That's like Angie's, Home Advisor, Thumbtack, Yelp, like what was one?
Nextdoor.
Yeah, and Nextdoor is a little bit different. I don't know as much about Nextdoor. Like we've run ads on Nextdoor because you can do display, but you can also do lead gen, I think. So, but regardless, like the lead gen side, what's happening is they're selling you someone's contact information or they're selling the connection right to you. And some people, I used to go, hey man, Yelp sucks, Thumbtack sucks, all these lead gen sources, like they aren't very good, and you get bottom feeder customers, you get people who don't want to pay your pricing and things like that because they have no loyalty to you, right? But that's true of Google too. The only difference with Google is Google's usually the first place people go, and then all these other lead gens are like their second tier sort of leads. So those people have a tendency not to make decisions as well, and I'll go into that a little bit. But like, I've turned the corner on those. I've changed my tune because I got more information. I talked to more people, but I had been doing consults for a couple of years and kept hearing these horror stories of Yelp and all these platforms. And what ended up, I always use this example because I just remember it so clearly. This guy was like, I built my entire company. He was at like 5 million, I think, off the back of Yelp. And he was in Chico, California. And he said, I woke up one day and Yelp was not performing. And I was still spending $5,000 a month. And I was like, okay, well, and this is before Google got as expensive as it is now. So it felt kind of expensive to get nothing out of it, given the marketplace and the landscape. And he had to contract his business because his lead gen source, this is one of the biggest mistakes you can do, is have one primary lead source and not use some of the money you're making to go and build your funnels elsewhere, like your brand presence and other lead platforms and things like that. Because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When that lead source stops performing for you, what happens to your company? You got to go, whoop, you got to contract. Like because you weren't doing the brand building, which is why you should go listen to the brand building podcast, but like, or the brand awareness, Facebook ads. But
the whole spiel of not having all of your eggs in one basket, basically.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly what it is. It's putting all your eggs in one basket. And I've seen contractors with big government contracts do this. I've seen people with lead gen do this. And you got to remember, like, these platforms exist to make money. They're trying to fulfill a need, but you're not their only customer. And so they are going to put your dollar amount that you're willing to spend up against somebody else's. And you are either the top or you're the bottom, really. But the reason why I've changed my tune is because what I've started to see more and more is there's some businesses, especially in the early days, who can rely on these platforms to get the leads, and they can make it work. And in the early days, because every single customer to your business is a foundation, like is a brick in your foundation, if you can break even on these jobs or make a little bit of profit, even if it isn't as much as you might want, like you're getting the reps in, you're building your operations out, you're building a better business because your business is getting more experience. On top of that, the really good businesses have found ways to make these things profitable. Now, I get people go like, all these leads suck and I can never make them profitable. That might be the case, but it also might be the case that your sales suck, that your upsells suck, that your service sucks. I don't know, really. For some of you, that's going to be the case, and you just got to take a look at your business and be like, how can we try and make this thing work? Or it really just doesn't work in your market, which is another viable thing. Like, you don't have the resources or the funds or the kind of people, just it doesn't work. Because I have seen it work great in some markets and not work great in others. So that said, all those like lead gen platforms, we don't handle them. So I have limited experience with them. We handle Google stuff. So then you get to the lion's share, which is Google, right?
Yep. And so when it comes to Google, so typically, one other thing that I find that people really go on the wrong foot of, depending on their stage of business, when they're like, okay, they're in the beginning, they're a one-man shop, or they have three technicians, they have 5, they have 10. So when we start trying to get into Google, should we go at what stage with LSA, and should we go at what stage with PPC? And what is the difference between the two, so that we understand why we're making that decision?
So LSA, it's all part of Google's advertising suite, right? And LSA is a different inventory than search. Even though than PPC, even though they both show up on the search page, there are two different ways of going about search advertising. LSA is the top. It is the most clicked on. It is the one that shows reviews, but there's only 2 slots in most searches. Google is always playing around with this a little bit, but it's typically 2. Sometimes you'll see 3. 2 slots. So if you're in a market with 20 plumbers, well, you've got like a 10% chance of hitting that. Like you've got your 10% of the market. So it's not your chances. There's a lot of things that actually influence the ranking, but like LSA is the very, very tippy top. It is pay per lead, not pay per click. So when you pay per the lead, like when somebody messages you, when they call you from that platform, or if they book directly from your booking engine because you're using like Service Titan, like you get charged for those leads. Google will then like try and use their AI to scan the lead. If the lead is truly bad, they'll refund you that money. So it's a really like forgiving platform. But the reason why it's top is because it's also Google's most controlled. It's more controlled than search. So what Google's trying to do is they are trying to maintain a good experience for everybody who uses their search engine. Because if they don't keep that user, if that user starts going to DuckDuckGo or Yahoo, it's not Yahoo, but like to anybody else, like they can't sell advertising, and that's their biggest moneymaker. So they're really interested in making sure that their ad platform is only going to give good results. And so they created LSA as a way to make sure that only the good businesses show up, which means your work on the platform really, if you're going to be part of the platform, you are required to like go in and prove to Google that you're a good business, which is why they ask for background checks, insurance. They don't want you to have a home address. They want you to have a shop with your Google business listing. All this is part of that, right? And then the actions that you take, how well you use the platform. And I have a big video I'm working on, like the actual actions, because it's really in depth. But the actions you take are what influences Google's ranking on whether or not you get to one of those 2 top spots. And then then it becomes the user looking at your reviews compared to somebody else. So if you have like 5 reviews and somebody with 1,000 shows up, who's going to win that click? Yeah. So, so that's why LSA exists. And it's usually the thing that we tell people to start with, because in some markets it does gangbusters. And we've seen entire companies like build themselves up on the back of LSA. But then that also builds you a known vulnerability, which is why your pricing needs to be able to sustain not just LSA, but other marketing efforts on top of it, right? Mm-hmm. So that way your margins make sense to where you can still do your brand building while you're enjoying the fruits of LSA. Because we have seen multiple times where like Google asks for a new certificate, or Google a certificate of insurance because it expires after a little while, or something happened on the Google business listing and like the system gets rocked a little bit. Well, then like you could see a gap where you don't have leads coming in because it's your only lead source. So you got to still do your other marketing. Like just doing one is irresponsible. Mm-hmm. Then you got search, which is kind of like the OG Google stuff. When people said like, you need to dominate Google, it was a mixture of SEO and PPC. And SEO has gotten far more complex and far more stuffed as a initiative, because everybody's doing it now instead of just the ones who are paying attention. So it doesn't work as well as it used to. It's harder to rank than it used to be. And that's very variable by the market. I'm talking about like the demographic of the North American continent as a whole. In most communities, it's not as easy as it was. Also, Google has pushed SEO further and further down because they want more ads on the top, which is why you can get 1, 2, 6, 7 ads before you ever get to an organic listing. But so, the problem with PPC that people have is it's expensive, and you're paying per click, which is why it's PPC, pay per click, not pay per lead. So you have to get enough clicks to get the leads, because not everybody is going to convert, right? And not everybody's going to actually like go to your website and then click call out of all those clicks. And this is why we like to start with LSA. It's a little bit simpler. It tends to be a lot cheaper. But when you get to PPC, you got to remember somebody searches, then they click you, one of many on there. There might be like 3 listings there. They're going to click you. Then they go into your website, and your website better be good and better build credibility really, really fast, and better be very clear on where you go to contact a person, or you're going to lose the possible lead. They're going to bounce and go to somebody else because you look like you're not very credible. You don't look like a professional business, so you don't instill confidence. That's where your branding comes into play. That's where like the design of your website comes into play. And it's not that it has to be like the world's best designed anything, but good Lord, make sure that people can see the contact points. I can't tell you how many people like bury it down below the scroll line on the phone or the website. So, or the computer. But so those are the two ways you can like do lead gen on Google. But the hard part is telling people like, hey, you might need 10 to 15 clicks, and each click is going to cost you $30, which means each lead becomes like $300, and you better close that lead, but you're not going to close every lead. So if your sales sucks, right? If you're back to the sales side, if you don't have your sales acumen dialed in with your CSRs, if you're missing phone calls, like you're spending a ton of money with not a lot of output. And then you don't make the money back on the back end. And so that's where marketing, people can sometimes be like, man, our PPC just doesn't feel like it's doing something. But then, and we've seen this where we go through and we start listening to the phone calls and we're like, well, you missed 50% of your phone calls. Like you don't have an answering service and people call you at 8 o'clock at night. And that holds true for SEO too. Some people are going to call you when you're not available. So find ways to be available, or at least more available than just the answering machine. So, so that's the way those work. I feel like you have questions though.
Yeah, I do. So, and one point that you touched upon, like that I want you to expand a little bit on, because I see a lot of people making that mistake, which is showing to Google like that you are a good option for their clients. How do we do that? Like, because I see a lot of people, they'd be like, hey, my LSA, I signed up for LSA, it worked awesome for months, and then I went on a vacation, turned it off for 3 weeks, and when I paused it for 3 weeks, and when I came back, it was giving me like it started giving me 10% of the leads it used to give. So what do we do, and what metrics should we be aware of to make sure that we don't fall on the bad side of Google?
Number one, if you're the only one who can do the work or answer the phone calls, if for whatever reason your office cannot answer the phone for like a week because you're on vacation, turn off those leads. Otherwise, Google sees the influence of you not getting a phone call, right? Not picking up. And then number two is, if you truly want to be available for people, change your hours to 24/7, get an answering service that picks up the phone, and Google's going to see these guys answer the phone. So the call answer rate is a big one because Google puts a call tracking number in this, and then they measure how many of these phone calls are actually being answered. And when that doesn't happen, Google goes, well, we don't want to send our users there. So like if you're going to play in that sandbox, make sure that you're available when the hours you put in are available. The other thing is Google asks you to put in information for the leads. And a lot of people never do this. They just get it in their CRM. But you got to remember, Google's a data company. If you can give them the name and you can give them the problem, then that's data that they will sell somewhere else. And so they're going to prioritize you if you're a good data broker for them, which I don't really like that setup. It feels really scammy, but like it just is what it is. It's the world we live in. You can rate your leads. Like the platform asks you, and it's really important, like go through the help docs, understand the platform, but like you can rate your leads on like a 5-star rating, and that helps you and Google. Google will go, oh, you don't want these, so we're not going to send you more of these. And then you do want these, so we're going to send you more of these. But the mistake that I see people make here is they end up rating leads badly because they didn't close, not because they didn't have the intent of hiring a plumber. And then that can throw you off, right? Like the algorithm just goes, oh, you don't want plumbing leads because you didn't want these 5 we sent because you didn't close them. But that's because your CSR bungled the phone call, right? Like that's a totally different like problem. If somebody has the intent to hire a plumber and it's a service you offer, that is a great lead and you should mark it as great. Doesn't mean that they're going to hire you because they're human, right? Google has no way of going like, we're only going to send you the easy leads. We're not going to send you the hard ones. No, buck up and take the hard ones. Like, and just understand that, okay, is there any way we can capture these? And so quick note, one thing that kills me is when people never follow up on a no. So if you get a lead out of LSA and somebody goes like, cool, I'm going to call around a little bit, you should call them 20 minutes later to make sure that they actually got booked with someone. And it shows that you care. And it shows that like, if they don't have a good experience, guess who they're going to come back to? The one that said, hey man, did you get what you needed? We just want to make sure you got your problem looked at. Sweet. Those little things matter so much and people just dismiss them. So think about how to be a good human in your marketing. Cool, it works. So other things that you have to do are like, as far as being a good business, those are the heavy ones. Oh, reviews. After you get like the lead through, Google is like, hey, not you rating the lead, but you can send a review through the platform and it hits your Google business listing and it hits LSA. Those are really, really important for 2 reasons. Google goes, people liked using you. And the second one is it increases your review score. So when you do show up as one of the two, if you have 100 and somebody else has 5, you get the click, right? So your listing and your company gets stronger and stronger and stronger over time as you collect reviews, and never take your foot off the gas of reviews on Google. So
And how many reviews? Like, so when I show up, like, say people in my area are like, a lot of plumbers are 200, 300, 400 reviews and more. How many reviews do I need, or what kind of review count do I get to and then I can start competing with them?
That's going to depend on your market, right?
Yep.
Like I've seen markets where it's like nobody has more than 40 reviews. And if you walk in with 70, cool, you're going to win, right? But I've also seen markets where it's like nobody has more than 40 except for 2 top players who are just owning the market, and they have thousands. The thing is, in that place, at that point, I think that a lot of customers will start to look at the big gun and go, I bet you they're really expensive, and start calling around a little bit. And so, and it's, I like always figure out like what's the next step, not necessarily like I don't want people to not work on reviews because there's somebody 1,000 reviews ahead of them. They started at 10, they started at 0, they got to 10 one day, and they got to 20. Like just like you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
Don't buy reviews, but like just work on it.
Yeah. And when do I when do my reviews look legit? Like what kind of review count do I get to when my review count against 1,000 review company looks legit? Like they actually count.
Yeah, it's like stair steps of credibility, right? So 25 is going to be like your first one. Like, okay, cool. Yep. Somebody can hire me. And actually there's 25 testimonials sitting there that say I do good work. Then I think it's like 50 is another sort of like turning point. 100, then like 150, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, right? And these are all doable, by the way. Like some people are like, I'll never get there. Sometimes it'll feel slow, but you can get there. But like every one of these sort of like big number tipping points, it's kind of like pricing in a store where everybody's selling something at $9.99 because they don't want to say $10, right? $12 and $9.99 for some reason look very different. And I feel like reviews are the same way. Like, so, 49 doesn't look quite as good as 50. And then 99 doesn't look quite as good as 101.
Yep.
Right. So like there's these weird spots where the influence, like you take these leapfrogs, just like the count and the influence measurement are different, and the influence is squishy because human psychology plays a part. So, all right, we should probably wrap it up, but if you have more questions, we can tackle this again.
I'm good.
So, all right. Well, if you, we're going to wrap it up, but if you would like an eyeball on your marketing, or if you would like to spend some time with Kyrillos in order to figure out like, hey, what is it you should be working on and get a roadmap for your future at the very least. It is part of our sales process, but man, do you leave this consult that you can schedule with a lot of info. You can go to tylerwilliams.net or mammothforplumbers.com and schedule a consult. You're going to get one of the two of us, but most likely it'll be Kyrillos because, man, he rocks those and it's his job. So we'll see you next time. And thanks a lot, Kyrillos. We'll do more of these.
Thank you, Tyler.
Let me tell you the tale of Tyler Williams, the marketing man. Moon beneath the northern glow, through icy winds and endless snow. One dark night, disaster came, a plumbing failure, a world in shame. Searching online, no ads in sight, no plumber answered in the endless night. The pipes burst wide, the earth gave way. His home was gone, his mother lost. With fists clenched tight to the frozen sky, Tyler made a vow, a marketing cry. Arise, their name shall stand. I will forge their fate with my own hand. Tyler Williams, the marketing man. With cosmic power, he built the plan. Fire in his eyes, campaigns in his hand. He stone, the Alaskan wilds became his home. He fought off bears with furious might and carved a shelter through the night. But cold winds whispered, his breath ran thin. He stumbled weak, his strength grew dim. Then through the storm, a shadow tall, a mighty mammoth, a titan's call. I am Mark, the marketing mammoth. Tyler, your time has come. I will teach you the cosmic secrets of persuasion and advertising. Ancient marketing magic lost to time. Through my wisdom you shall rise, and the world will always find a plumber in their time of need. Tyler Williams, the marketing man, born of the wild with a mammoth plan. He bends the stars, he shapes the sky. For plumbers lost, he lifts them high. With words like thunder, ads like fire, he turns their dreams into empires. No more shadows, no more doubt. With mammoth power, he pulls builds out. For 35 years through frost and fate, he studied with Mark, making marketing great. He grew 10 feet, his beard turned wild. With mammoth wisdom, no longer a child. His eyes